Well, I was ruminating about what to talk about today, when for some strange reason, I don't know if these thoughts ever come into your mind, for some reason I thought about the four food groups. I haven't thought of them for decades. And I was reflecting on how they've changed, since the 60s. And I actually went and Googled what were the four food groups in the 60s, and they were meat, milk, vegetables and fruit, and bread. So, and if you follow that at all, even on the periphery, they've changed, the proportions have changed, the food pyramid has gone upside down, all that kind of stuff. So, I'm not going to talk about that anymore, but as soon as that memory came to me about the four food groups, I thought, if there were four spiritual food groups, what would they be? What are the four essential spiritual practices that are going to nurture us, that we can integrate and take in every single day to help us be spiritually strong, rejuvenate and renew us? And just as quickly as I had that question, the four practices came to me. And that's what I'm going to share today. But I'm going to speak about each one briefly, and then we are going to have an extended meditation where we can really kind of go more deeply with those four. Now, you may have four different ones, A-okay. You may have fewer, you may have more. The thing is, just to give some thought to that question, what is it that nourishes me spiritually? And make sure that you're doing this every day. So I'm going to begin with gratitude, appreciation, thanksgiving. This is something Unity people talk about a lot, and you probably hear many gratitude statements here on Sunday mornings, because we are really committed to making that part of our daily lives. Many of us have perhaps practiced when we wake up in the morning to find 10 things to be grateful for before we even get out of bed. Or perhaps you have a gratitude journal. That's all good. And I believe there can be so much more to this one word. If we lived taking nothing for granted, wouldn't we be grateful for every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of the day? Think of all the life on this planet, all the animals, all the birds, all the fish, all the trees, all the vegetation, all the microscopic life that we don't even see. And what do we have? A human life. That's a miracle. So rare, so precious. Are we really grateful for that? I know on some days I would rather just be a cat. And sleeping on a pillow in the sunshine, right? But I am grateful for this human manifestation right now. So we can appreciate this human form, but are we also grateful for the knowledge that we are so much more than our humanity? That, as our second unity principle states, we are creations of the one Creator. We are born with everything that Spirit is. The same way we inherit physical DNA from our physical parents, our spiritual DNA is inherited as well. All good, all wise, all love. That's something to be grateful for. Now, what about the person or the event that was the cause of you finding this truth out about yourself? Well, although I was interested in lots of different faith traditions as a youngster and teenager, I never was attracted to any one church or denomination or path in particular. Somewhere after I graduated after I left home, my mom found Unity. And I knew, she was doing something, I didn't really care. We have a beautiful physical center in Missouri called Unity Village, and every once in a while we'd be on the phone. She'd say, "Don't call me next week, I'll be at Unity Village," and I would say, "Great, have a nice time," end of conversation. Not curious at all. She sent me a subscription to the Daily Word. Katie mentioned, we have this little booklet with the Daily Word, and the first time I got it, I opened it up, I saw the scripture quote, in the garbage. I I don't want anything to do with that Bible stuff. And every month, I was living on Quadra Island, we had wood burning stoves, so I was like, okay, here it is, toss it in the fire starter box. So, obviously things have changed. But who brought you to Unity? How did you find out about it? Was it an event? Was it a person? Are you grateful for that? The second spiritual food group that came to mind is acceptance. So, have you noticed that we are not in charge of the world? That things do not happen, that things do happen that we don't expect or that we didn't plan or that we do not want. These things happen without our permission, without our participation. Well, I was talking to one of my prayer partners last week, and I was telling him about our upcoming trip. Joseph and I are taking our 5th trip to India in the fall. We're going to India, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand for 6 months. And I have full confidence in your leadership group to carry you. So I was telling them about this trip, and it's like, I love the unexpected things that happen when you travel, especially in other cultures and other parts of the world. Like, that's so cool, I just love that. So then later in our conversation, he's a minister at Unity of Savannah, I was telling him how I heard that at Unity Village, they closed the bookstore. And how the restaurant doesn't operate the way it used to anymore. And how utterly disappointed I was and unhappy about that. And you know what he said? Well, that's an interesting response for someone who just said they love change. Don't you love prayer partners, you know? They just tell you the truth. So I love change when I plan it, when I'm a part of it, right? But it doesn't always happen that way, does it? I have a book called, I haven't even read the whole book because, have you ever come across a book where the title says enough? You get it, you totally get it just by reading the title. The title is When You're Falling, Dive. When things are happening, especially that we don't understand or don't agree with, stop fighting it. Enter into it and just dive. Our resistance and our complaining, you probably noticed, are useless. In fact, more than useless, they are detrimental to what is happening at the time. I know many of you have experienced Martha Creech. She's a minister, and she, I think, was our presenter at Unity Canada Conference for a few years. She has a monthly newsletter. This is what she said just last week, which is, I thought, oh yeah, perfect for my talk. If we are willing to brave the unknown by welcoming everything and pushing nothing away, the energy that had been consumed by our resistance to life's unwelcome events will now be available to contribute to the healing, building resilience, and acting with love. That's the truth. When we accept what is happening, we free up the energy, that we can access our divine mind and be able to respond with all of our spiritual resources. Another thing about acceptance, I thought about this, perhaps you've heard, I'm sure you've heard, and perhaps even said, this little phrase that's circulating, it is what it is, right? This is not acceptance. It may sound like a statement of acceptance. Well, it is what it is. What I hear is resignation. Just reflect for a moment. Do you say that when you win a lottery? Do you say that when you find the perfect parking spot? Do you say that, oh, I just ran into an old friend yesterday, it is what it is? We don't. We only say it when we're not happy with what is going on, and we're thinking that we're accepting it with that statement. I don't think so. That's my personal take on that. We only hear that when we only tend to say that, again, when we're not happy with what's going on. So resignation, like resistance, shuts us down, dampens our outlook, closes our minds to opportunities that may be right there in front of us at our fingertips, and we don't see them. So just dive in. The third one is what we will be exploring this afternoon in the workshop, and that is letting go. One of our 12 powers, or 12 spiritual gifts in Unity we look at is release. So how can we use that gift? We use it with the power, with the tool of forgiveness. So you'll notice that the workshop is called The Path to Freedom. Forgiveness is not part of the title, because I've taught this for years, there is so much confusion and misinformation about what forgiveness is and what forgiveness is not. The workshop is called The Path to Freedom because letting go is an action step that we can take that puts us on the path to freedom. That path is in your hands. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's not about getting them to admit they were wrong or to say that they're sorry. You may have held on to some of those thoughts in the back of your mind. You don't have to raise your hand. Everything would be fine if they would just say they're sorry. Perhaps you've heard the phrase forgive and forget. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's all about us. Us deciding whether or not we want to be tied to this person or event for the rest of our lives. Whether or not we want to live a small life, one with boundaries set by other people and other circumstances. We can live, of course we can, with resentment, with mistrust, with disappointment, with anger. Or we can choose the path of freedom. In spirit, we are boundless, infinite, unlimited. But are we living that way now? Desmond Tutu says this: without forgiveness, we remain tethered to the person that harmed us. Until we can forgive them, that person will hold the keys to our happiness. That person will be our own jailer. When we forgive, we take back control of our own fate and our own feelings. We become our own liberator. So please consider joining us this afternoon, 1:30 till 4. The last one, a potent spiritual food, is what I call the silence. Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, discovered for herself the value of spending sometime every day in the silence. She came to understand that our spirit, that since our nature is divine, that we have the capacity to rest and renew ourselves within. So, as I was preparing this talk, I would get to this spot, and then it's like, what do I say now? I just kind of I stopped. Okay, well, I'll come back to it tomorrow. And I come to this spot again, it's like, nothing's coming to me. What do I say now? Over and over and over again. And finally, one thing I've learned, not to push when this happens, just allow it to come. Something's at work that I just don't understand right now. And what finally came to me is, we can't talk about the silence. It's an experience. So that's why in a few moments we will be having our time of meditation, and we will begin and end with some of Myrtle's words, and we will have the experience of the silence. With me? Okay. So the 4 spiritual food groups, practices to include every day, things that will nourish us and keep us spiritually strong, gratitude, acceptance, letting go, in the silence. So I invite you now to join me in this time of prayer and meditation. So if you just want to perhaps maybe give yourself a little wiggle in your chair and make sure that you're comfortable as you can be. These are Myrtle's words. A little period of quiet and rest each day is your opportunity to establish yourself at the center of your being, the one place where the supply of life and substance is inexhaustible. God is this eternal life that we make into living. Each day, you should have a regular period of stillness when the soul may gather sustaining power and restoring life. Spirit gives freely. It is for us to keep the receiving channels open. When you start to go into the silence, you should breathe evenly in that happy feeling that you are taking in great draughts of life-sustaining air, which is the very essence of divine life. So let's take this time now at your own pace to take 3 beautiful, life-affirming breaths. And into that space that we've now created within ourselves, let's bring the idea of gratitude, of appreciation, of thanksgiving. Gratitude is a feeling, it's an energy generated by our experience of all the good in our lives and in the world. We understand that we don't always see it, that it's not apparent, that the world may actually look the opposite. But we know that everywhere God is, everywhere Spirit is, goodness is. Every circumstance, every situation, every person, no matter what, the presence of God is there. And that means that the potential for that good to come forward and to manifest is also present. And so we give thanks for that. We give thanks for this human form that allows us to move and be in this world, to be an expression and a manifestation of the divine, a vessel for that good, a channel for love. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, where you live, what your education was, what your cultural background is. Each single human being, well, all life is a manifestation of the divine. And so we are grateful. And then we bring the idea of acceptance into this time of contemplation. We know without doubt that what we see, some of what we see in the world, is not the way we would like it to be. And as long as we are standing in judgment and seeing them and us and giving energy to perceived separation, that will continue. It doesn't mean we have to like what's going on or agree with what's going on. But when we see through the eyes of acceptance, we are opening up to the divine mind, to infinite source that will illuminate our path and show us what is ours to do. The third one is forgiveness. Each one of us deserves to be living unencumbered, unanchored from the past. The beautiful daily word for today, free. That is our nature. And we have the power to cut the ties with any person or circumstance, any event, any situation, anything that is outside spirit, that is in physical manifestation. We have the power to cut that tie and to free ourselves. It doesn't mean it was okay. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean they're getting away with anything. It means we are free to live our lives fully, beautifully, powerfully, full of love and joy, potential. And now we come to the silence. That beautiful centeredness placed within each one of us. The place without words, without thinking. The place where truly we are all one. United in the one presence, the one love, the one mind. This is where we rest. This is where we are rejuvenated. This is where we fill ourselves up so that we can go back into the world and be the change we want to see. We'll just take a moment in the silence. You can do this anytime, every day. Be still. And these are Myrtle's words again. As you come out of the silence, count your blessings and give thanks for them. Realize that only the good exists in you and in your world, that only good exists in you and in your world, that the power you contacted in the silence may have the opportunity to multiply and increase. Give thanks that you have already received the good for which you look to Spirit in the silence. So as we bring our attention back to this time and this place, we give thanks for our ability to do this, for our understanding of how important it is to do. And for the new life that is streamed in us, enlivening us and refreshing us to go forward. We know this is so, and so it is. Amen.